Hello, and welcome back, viewers, to the LJL Spring 2021 coverage by us three, the LJL OU, or officially unofficial, and we are covering the first games of V3 and Detonation FocusMe in this split. Go back to last summer, it was 2020, and we had the 5-game series between these two titanic teams, which is one of the best series that we had seen in the entire year in this entire region. Now, coming into this match, they're facing off yet again in the regular split, and I want to ask you two gentlemen who are Sam, Initialize Hapgood, and Lexi, I hear you go by Mass1 on the internet, what you think about the mentality of these two teams coming into this matchup, knowing that V3 won against DFM in a shock upset in some people's eyes, if you looked at the start of 2020, coming into this first regular season match. Now, Initialize, let's go to you first.
I think it will be a very pride-filled match. DFM are used to being the best. In the off-season, they have tried to make it so their roster will be the best. They have picked up Aria, best mid laner in the whole damn region, to look to make their roster as terrifying as possible. On the other side, though, V3 are the current champions. They are the ones that went to Worlds. They've kept a couple of their key pieces. They pulled in people like Mujin in the jungle as well, who come with a fairly impressive pedigree. So I'm expecting these teams to expect, or at least in them of themselves, to expect to win this match. And that should mean that it will be a very competitive game.
And Lexi, I want to go to you because, of course, you've done a lot of work in and around the place on some other games and the mentality of them and stuff about like the mentality of tilt and the kind of the mindsets behind a lot of these competitive scenes. For DFM to lose to V3, do you think that affects them, or does that fire them up in this case?
It is partly on a player-by-player management, environmental kind of mentality. If Detonation FocusMe are a group of people who always want to win, and losing is always the best way of learning from your past. If you lose, you learn 10 times more than from winning. Winning doesn't
Losers
tell you a
improve.
lot. Exactly. So if Detonation FocusMe take this loss, they could easily use that momentum to go even further. Maybe that loss is what actually spurred them to pick up Aria and to figure out the actual roster around it. And instead of going, oh, we can wait till 2022 when residency stuff is already sorted for us. No, clearly this is a team that really want to win. They want to go to Worlds, and picking up Aria is a statement like that. We'll have to see how they actually perform as a unit, though, because on the Rift, they could be showing one thing and kind of telling us one thing, and actually they end up going 0-2 in the first week would be another thing.
And one of the things that DFM will be showing us is Kazu in that support role. Of course, V3, as Initialize was saying, have their roster changes too. But Initialize, going back to you, Kazu in the bot lane. If Aria is an expected upgrade by DFM in the mid lane, like, what's this Kazu factor going to do in this game?
So it's an interesting one because Kazu has effectively switched between being support staff and a pro support through pretty much his entire career. It feels like every split on he switches back off to being a support, then coming back in. He was on Ozone Rampage way back in 2014.
One of the originals,
So this guy
yes.
is not exactly unknown to the stage, unknown to playing support with DFM even. So it's not like he's some rookie. It's not like he's some coach just stepping in with no competitive experience. He is, however, somewhat out of practice from being on stage. He has been a coach on DFM consistently now since May 2018. So that is going on 2.5, near enough 3 years at this point without setting foot on stage, such as it is in this sort of online environment we're all in with COVID right now. So while he's not exactly coming in entirely green, he's not going to be at the level of Gang. We can nearly guarantee that. So if there is a weakness on DFM right now with the way things work with residency, Kazu is probably it.
So just one last point before we really do get into the thick of things, because we are desperate to start off this Titanic game, as we said right at the opening. Lexi, just coming back to you one last time, we've talked about, of course, Kazu being in this bot lane, and maybe being a bit more shaky, and said, well, what are they going to show us on the Rift as opposed to what they've written on paper? The meta
Mm.
tends to be some really heavy carries down in that bot lane. If you've got this unsteady support, but then also having this very superstar mid lane, do you think the meta, and then of course this applies to V3 too, bringing Mugen into that jungle, and then of course Cog up into that top lane, who plays a bit more of those
Mm.
carries in the top lane, is the meta favoring either of these teams, and what should we expect coming into this draft phase?
Honestly, this meta favors Detonation FocusMe. One of their star players, longest time players, and everything else has been by Siros's side has been Utapon. Utapon has always wanted to play more heavy heavy AD carries. He wants to be able to carry a game. He actually likes
Agency.
carrying a game. Yeah, exactly. We know he can play things like the Ezreal, who can in past metas has been the best hyper carry in points in metas. We know he likes to carry a game. I think DFM, this whole meta suits them. We know Ebby will hard carry a game. We know Arya wants to hard carry every game. He did that, whether he wants to or not, on Crest Gaming Act in some spots with his Silas going absolutely bonkers. Steel, we've seen carry games. Honestly, if you have 4 members of a team that want to carry games, if they're allowed to, it feels like your meta's favored.
Favored or not, we will have to see what's actually in the cards drawn by both teams. We're going to head over to pick and ban. So, gentlemen, please take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. We are here with our first game of day 2 of the LJL OU, and we've got a killer match, as we've been all talking about, namely V3 versus DetonatioN FocusMe. V3 Esports will be on the blue side this time out, and that means it's Cog, Mugen, Ace, Hollow, and Reiner that are making up their 2021 roster. And Mass Swan, my fellow commentator and colorcaster, take DFM away for me.
In the top lane, we've got Abby. In the jungle, we've got Steel. In the mid lane, in his debut game for Detonation FocusMe, it's Arya. In the bot lane, we have Utapon. And as their support, we have Kazu.
That means, of course, that we've got a few bans to get through. Namely, Olaf and Camille have been taken away by V3. Steel and Ebby have both put their time into those champions. We saw them a lot in the summer of 2020, even from both of them. Other side, though, it's Ace's Galio, which is off the table. No surprise there. And interestingly, of course, Talia as well, which has been such a high priority jungler in the recent metas.
Yeah, so what's going to be really interesting for us is, in this matchup at least, we've got 2 unknown commodities in the LJL, in Hollow and Mugen. So scrim practice and kind of what these players enjoy playing in those scrims are going to be a huge representation across these pick and ban phases. The first week is actually very in a way, you just kind of lean on what you know from other metas in other regions and go, well, this works there, so it's probably there. V3 picking up the Nidalee, screaming that we might be seeing something like a Renekton in that top lane. As identified, Ebby goes towards one of his favorite picks.
So Nah has come under a lot of speculation, I think is the way to phrase it, in recent weeks. Likes of LS, not a fan. We've seen some mixed results, even if lots of pro players have been picking it. It feels like there is a particular level you have to be able to pick up Nah. AB is historically one of the best damn Nah players in the whole region, one of the better ones in the world, frankly. So he's certainly got the pedigree. Whether we can pull it off here is another matter. They lock in Kaiser to go along with it, and V3 are hovering the Jace. Of course, it could go to Cog, but remember, Ace in the mid lane is the famous Jace player for V3.
He loves playing that champion more than any other champion, really. There were some spots where we were like, well, okay, Ace wants to play his Jace once again. We'll let him, even if it doesn't really fit the comp. And part of the fact was because Boogie was just so damn good, even if Ace had a lackluster game, it didn't matter. Mugen is now stepping into that spot, another Flash Wolves player, and well, we're expecting big things from them as, we're getting some spice from Hollow in the bot lane.
Yeah, he goes towards the Xayah. I know Nymera is a really big proponent of Xayah right now. I've been talking with him a little bit about it. I think we mentioned it yesterday on stream as well. Xayah right now with Gale Force, with her ability to use the Spellblade passive on Essence Reaver as well. She's quite good with Navori Quickblades. She's got quite a nice item build right now. DFM, though, have gone towards the Lilia as the response. I feel like I've seen a fair amount of Nidalee versus Lilia over the last few months.
We really have. It's become one of the most common things in the world's metagame. Nidalee was #1 in the jungle rankings. Guess who was #2 initialize?
Oh, was it not Graves?
No, it was actually Lilia. Lilia had a higher pick and ban
Really?
rate,
Oh, there
and
you go. I
then
mean,
Graves was #3.
wow, there you go. I think probably because Canyon was so damn good on the Graves, I kind of assumed everyone else was, and of course Nidalee and Lilia right up there in priority. So now we're of course through to
Yeah,
the
and for the
second phase
longest
advance.
time, Nidalee actually had the highest pick and ban rate
Oh,
at
really?
Worlds,
Yeah,
around
there you go.
92%. She had the highest
Wow.
presence. She wasn't almost the first one to lose his one. Well, he had
Lo-
100% presence for the longest time, but then quickly dropped down.
Right.
World's
Everyone,
meta.
everyone
Yeah.
thought they could play like Canyon. Turns out that
They
you have
thought
to
they
be
could, yeah.
really good. All right. So, looking here at this second phase of bans, it is support focus from DFM. It's Leona and Rel, two of these heavy engaged supports. Lucian was the ban out from V3, as is Zoe. That's a bit of an odd thing to see banned against DFM, ain't it? But of course, it's not Seros in the mid lane, as we said. It is Arya, who is notorious for his skills on both the Lucian and the Zoe.
And what Crest Gaming Act did almost every single draft on Red site, Detonation, FocusMe do as well. Arya will be getting the perfect counter pick. They are letting every bit of information drip out of V3 before they give the final say over to Arya. The Alistair being locked in, and now V3 are in an awkward spot. Ace, who was playing a lot with Arya at Worlds when they went to Worlds, said was actually helped by him. They were arranging scrims, and now they're against one another in the LJL. Oh, we're seeing the Renekton pick up. It's something I actually identified at the beginning of this draft when the Nidalee was picked up, so I'm giving myself a little pat on the back there. Well done, Alex. Well done. That does mean the Jace will be going mid, so now it's all support for Reina.
It absolutely is. What it also means, of course, is that DFM let it go straight the way through to the second phase of picks and bans. It'll be
True.
the Thresh locked in, which means that Reiner's Thresh, which is notoriously fantastic, gets to be on the bot side. He can leave Hollow to play by himself if he wants. He's on quite a safe pick, and they can all just pile in mid and top. And this Nidalee has got this Renekton to set her up, and Epi better be wearing his dancing shoes. I think it's going to get very scary in the top lane. And is that a hover of Orianna for Arya? We have been wondering for many years now whether Arya is willing to pick the Orianna. I think, looking back over stats, quite possibly this is his first professional Orianna game. It was a shock to say for a guy like Arya.
Absolutely. In season 10, we didn't see a single game out of him playing that Orianna. Obviously, Silas was his most played champion at 7 games with a 71% win rate, which was just absurd. It's 30 seconds on this clock, and that is actually insane. Ace has played Renekton once or twice before in the mid lane. He did it back last time in the 2019 finals.
Well,
but thank you for production for that fact, but I'm actually flabbergasted at this.
there you go. So it will be Ace picking up one of these bruiser top laner picks in the mid lane. He's done it before with the likes of Sat. He's doing it again here with Renekton. It's not the first time he's done it, as production is saying. Production have also confirmed this is Arya's first Orianna game, which doesn't necessarily sound that exciting because, you know, it's Orianna. Every mid laner in the world feels like plays it. But for Arya on DFM, it's quite a big deal. For V3 as well, they have put a lot of faith into Cog here, who is new blood in the top lane, who is on a bit of an awkward roster with the Jesters last year that didn't really work out. So, a lot of faith on Cog, a lot of faith on Mugen to come in and be on this massive carry pick in Italy. And Ace as well going towards, well, what feels like a pretty traditional Ace pick in some ways.
It's a very standard pick. It's like, okay, we give Ace 2 different types of things. Either champions that can just do effective wave clear and not have to deal with the rest of it and help the rest of his team, or bruisers. And that's the 2 champions he plays. He's very similar to Doinby in that style, really.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of another note from production here. Guess what the win rate that Ace has on Renekton. I'll finally get that sentence in the right order. Give me a guess.
I'm not going to be saying it's high because Renekton mid's never been super meta. So I'm going to be like 33%. Let's go 1 in 3.
You're an unlucky number out. 20% win rate on that. He's 1 in 4.
Oh, God. That's
mid when he played it 5 times in 2019. So V3 will be hoping to upset that stat a little bit. But of course, he is nailing into a ranged matchup like Orianna, but of course, Orianna, no dashes, and only a flash really to keep out of Renekton, who can slice dice and ruthless predator in place, which of course is pretty terrifying in and of itself. And you can sort of see what V3 potentially want to do in that mid lane, which is namely shut Arya down, put the point and click stun on the robot lady, throw a spear at her, and put her into pieces.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, Feathers Fly from the Xayah is going to be a great way. If they feel like a shockwave is going to be coming out or the ball gets a bit too close, you can throw Xayah out. They've got a few ways of getting there. I'll be honest. I'm not loving V3's comp. I'm not loving it. It's all this AD. Muujin has to get ahead. He's their only form of AP damage on their roster. And this is against DFM. Like, this isn't going to be a walk in the park. These are good combos. Like, we know Nidalee Renekton is a very standard thing you see in the top lane. That's where I expected it to go when Nidalee was first picked. I'm a little bit worried in the mid game. We are in a pause, and I'm gonna ask production if, because we're on a blast from the past, yes, get to say it even on camera. If we can skip.
Looks like we can. And I think production has just managed to do that perfectly for us. Thank you so much, Nymera. Of course, to anybody who was tuning in yesterday, myself and Nymera were podcasting for 40 minutes during a chrono break of all things. Sounds like there was a few internet issues around and about in Japan getting things all connected up. So hopefully now, with the way things are today, we can skip past some of those irritating pauses and get straight into the action here for V3 versus DFM.
Yeah, when those VODs are coming out, thankfully having chapters is going to help.
It absolutely will. I know you're so excited about that. I'm so excited about that. But I remember you messaging us saying, we've got chapters. And, very exciting stuff. Cog, yes. Interestingly, along with Ace here, though, about what's going on in this game, have snuck into this bot lane to see whether they can set up a little bit of a trap for, we won't call him Rookie, but we'll call him not exactly pro-level ex-coach Kazu in this bot lane, who might be at a bit of a risk. But you can see Cog's recalled, Ace is recalled, no funny business to be had.
I mean, this is going to be a really big test for Kazu. Thankfully, he's on Alistar duty, so while Alistar, it's important you land your combos, Kazu is a coach. Kazu has gone to the International Wildcard Tournament when it was the thing back in 2015. This is a man that has gone to the best stage that you can get to at international play at his time. He has gone to multiple worlds as DFM's coach. He is still a high-level performer. Alistar's going to also kind of help with that transition. Also, because he's a support player, he...
Gank in mid. Ooh, okay. That was a nice idea. He's still wandering through. I mean, there wasn't a lot of CC there, so maybe I got a little overhyped. But it's kind of fun to see all this going on and still immediately pathing straight over to the other Raptor camp, because you know what Lilia does, Lexi. She just eats chicken all day. That too. It's like Sonic the Speed Chicken Eater.
Yeah, pretty much,
like
actually.
Really
I think
dull game and sounds a lot like South London, but there you go. Anyway, I believe you were saying something before I interrupted for a non-gank.
It's all right. I was just identifying that Kazu has done a lot in his career in League of Legends. So while he is coming back and filling this void for Detonation FocusMe, it's not some shoes he's not fit to fill, at least in the short term. Long term, maybe a different story. Short term, we do want Gang back.
Absolutely. As it is, though, this is the roster we're kind of expecting to see for a fair amount of spring, as Ace hits level 3 first, gets a big slice dice, ruthless predator combo onto the Orianna, who is running teleport. There's no cleanse or anything here, so the moment Renekton gets on top of her, she is stuck there. Nidalee, though, has path top. Ebby needs to think about backing ways. Cog's going straight in. I think that's just a very dead knob, but the spear, trying to predict the flash, doesn't land.
Yeah, I guess it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Ebby just aware, well, if Muujin's coming in and he throws a spear, if I flash there, I'll probably die. So I'm just not going to. I'm just going to keep walking. I don't think Cog can do anything because he's already used all of his abilities. The only way Cog might have been able to do it is if he flashed in front of Ebby, just to kind of throw off Ebby and his pathing. But I doubt that. This is Ebby we're talking about.
Yeah, and I've also got to call out there, of course, you saw a little earlier that Arya pushed in mid and then used his first ward to stick a vision ward, there we go, onto the blue buff of Muujin, who basically pathed then through the river around the back of the Baron pit to avoid being seen on that, which I think might have caught Ebby a little off guard because, of course, the Mugen just never turned up on vision when he was supposed to on that blue buff. So possibly a little bit of good stuff there. Ebby hasn't backed interestingly from that gank. He stuck around in lane. And that leaves things kind of as they are, though this time they all know where Mugen is. And good hook in the bot lane does land onto Utapon, but Kazu just goes for the headbutt and shunts Reiner away. Nothing more to be seen as Steel comes back for this spawn of the Raptors again. The chicken fiend strikes once more.
Lilias need to farm, and chickens are sometimes the best form of nutrition on Summoner's Rift. Though Gromps definitely did get an upgrade. Those Rocky Boys sound far better. Quick thing to identify about this Nara as well. Thank you to production. This is Hail of Blades, which is not what you'd expect to see as Mugen's coming up for a second time.
Yes, this is the second one. Flash of the spear this time. Ebby avoids the gank, but lot of pressure being put by V3 towards the top side. As in the bot side, DFM look to respond. Death Sentence goes wide. Reiner and Hollow taking some damage, but they just can't get anything to stick. And Utapon unwilling to leave this wave all the way back here near the tower.
Yeah, the early game that Xayah does struggle with because it takes so long for her power to actually come through. Once it's there, though, once she gets 2 items in, Xayah's a completely different champion, and Mugen's still here.
He's just turned back up again. Round 3 fight. First one burn nothing. Second gank burn flash. Third gank might be enough, but watch that rage bar. It's at about half. If Ebby can find something, there is danger here. The teleport as well. Ebby is in so much trouble. Can he outplay is the question. Ace looking to get something to hop through, but if Ebby has got no chance to go mega, and it's a little Yordle that dies for first blood to Cog's Jace. But that was after the 3rd attempt. V3 may have tipped their hand a little onto their game plan there.
A tiny bit. I was surprising the positioning there. Really well played, actually, by Ace there, identifying that this is the minion that I need to get onto, which also allowed him to, because the waves are mirrored. It's funny. It's like Summoner's Rift is a mirror match in a way. Because the waves are mirrored, he knew he was going to be able to slice and dice once the teleportation fully came in. He didn't have to worry about too much. As long as Ebby didn't run past where all the minions were and start going to blue side, it wasn't going to be a problem because guess what? Who was there? Cog. Perfectly set up. What was important to notice is Ari actually pushed in the lane really quickly, prevented a freeze or anything from happening on Ace's side.
A little bit of a chunk onto Kazu there.
A little bit.
Absolutely right. We have got another game pause, guys. We had heard inklings it was going to be a little like this. The stream yesterday was running very far behind schedule. Of course, that was 4 a.m. our time, so we were asleep, thankfully. I didn't really want to be up as much as I love DFM and V3, and what an exciting matchup this could be. Didn't want to stay up to see that, but fortunately, we do have the joys of production, which means that while you're staring at our lovely faces, production can skip us forwards and avoid this kind of podcast section we would be stuck in otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, we do a podcast once a week. Gets released out on Thursdays. The LJL OU podcast. We need to get recording soon, initialized.
We do, actually. Yeah, we do. We've got quite a lot to talk about first week's back. After today, we'll have seen and covered all the games, so quite a lot to talk about, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have all 4 games from today, 4 games from yesterday, and the fact that production is giving me this hot tip that Reiner has a 71.4 win rate on Thresh over the whole of last year. Now, they did do a lot of winning, V3 did.
They did.
Last year.
But his Thresh is special.
Yeah, it very much was. I feel like at the moment, so far, Alistair is actually a great pick here. I'm actually surprised, honestly, that Reiner decided to pick into the Alistair the Thresh, but I mean, he must be just that confident, or maybe in scrims he's beaten Kazu on that Thresh.
And of course, it's just also one of Reiner's most favorite champions. It's a great pick for someone like Xayah who doesn't have necessarily that many dashes herself. I say that many because, of course, Gale Force is a thing now, so that immediately means there's another one available. But
you must spend 3,000 plus gold to be able to gain an additional dash.
Pretty much. It's a dash with an execute damage attached to it as well, which is always pretty special. Yeah, it's great for AD carries right now. Of course, some nerfs have kind of hit live as well. Though nothing towards the damage, just towards the cooldowns. But I think it's gone up by like 50% or so as Ebby takes a pretty nasty trade on the top side. Mininar, not exactly the highest base stat character in the game. In fact, I think he might be the lowest base stat character in the game.
Who, sorry?
Minina is the lowest base stat player in the game,
Minina.
I believe,
Is
or
he the
overall.
Pichu of Summoner's Rift?
Something like that. Again, I believe that's the case. I'm sure production will yell at me if I'm wrong.
Apparently
But
you are.
one,
Minina is the lowest, and Meganar has the most.
there you go. But we might have to take those trivia facts away from him because it's looking like there might be a fight over this Rift Herald. Mujin on this Nidalee can pounce away as Ebby gets
Watch
jumped on
Arya.
by Cog. That's a lot of damage. The Rage Bar's a long way away. And the solo kill comes out from Cog, who refuses to allow Ebby entrance into the river. Now V3 are hunting the Bambi up around this tier 1. Steel's going to have to outplay. Does have Lilting Lullaby, so things could get scary. Looking to try and shove out the way to prevent the easy way in. There's the Lilting Lullaby onto the Jace. Looking to escape. Very smooth Steel. He gets his speed buffs from Blooming Blows and decides it's time to get out of here.
This whole time, Arya has been pushing up on his own in this mid lane. While they're still escaping. They want him.
Arya's going to be around, though. I'm not sure they're going to want to take this. There is a level up, but of course, all the while, Cog gets his 4th plate in the top side. He's 2-0-0, has put Ebby in the dirt 2 times with a fair amount of assistance, it has to be said, from the rest of his team. But that means that top side is well and truly set up for success, which is exactly what you want to see from a Jace pick.
It really is. What's been interesting is obviously Steel has been just kind of farming, taking the chickens, being the chicken keeper that he wants to be on this Lilia. However, through that, they haven't actually gotten any advantages outside of those chickens.
CS leads.
Yeah.
CS leads in mid. Like, Arya has farmed exceptionally well on the Orianna, and Utapon up about 10, 15 as well on the bot side because they've been quiet lane, so that's fine for them, I guess. But you're right, there's not been any of these early ganks. There's not been...
Dragon.
Right, exactly. Nothing like that right now. And it means the gold is pretty dead even. I mean, it's 500 gold going the way of V3, which potentially favors them in the fact they do have a more traditional front-to-back teamfight comp, I guess. But this Jace getting further and further ahead is making Ebby's life absolutely miserable because range matchup into Nah at the minute with the lethality in as well, it's just hitting Ebby in the face for half his HP. You just can't trade back.
I low-key say...
Again!
This is what you need to do. They've identified this is the lane we're going to put them in. We're going to put the Gnar, which is a large amount of their engage, into the dirt. We're going to just say, no, Ebby, you can't play this game. We're going to get Cog further ahead, and we're just going to funnel into this. The problem that they're going to have to deal with is, obviously, they've still got a Kazu, they've got an Alistar who can just pop out and get absurd amounts of stats, and then put an Orianna ball, and that's going to be their engage. It's going to do a lot of damage very quickly. Arya isn't going to miss that either. They've still got Lilia with Lilting Lullaby. Even if DFM get put behind, they still have the capacity to play around. The other thing you need to worry about is Utapon has got over a wave of CS over Hollow in this bot lane, and Kai'Sa is going to be able to keep going a lot further into this. Wildsire does outrange Kai'Sa. It's not going to matter when Kai'Sa's right into your face.
Yeah, the killer instinct means that range is a little bit of a misnomer when it comes to Kai'Sa, because she presses R and suddenly she's in range, right?
Exactly.
And, you know, V3 come these mid-game team fights, if they can't really leverage Cog's significant advantage, they've got to Renekton him for frontline and maybe Thresh, sort of. That's kind of it. And then DFM, you know, when you're starting to pair up things like the Shockwave with the Lilting Lullaby, with Alistar engages, with Mega Gnars, that gets a bit scarier come mid to late game Baron fights, mid to late game Dragon fights. And I'm curious to see whether V3 can use what they've put into Cog to good effect. And, you know, it's great to see Cog having a great first game. He was in a bit of a difficult position on Rascal Jesters, but we had some moments of brilliance from him. And so far, up against Ebby, has done a decent job, let's be real.
Oh, absolutely. And in spring, we actually did see a lot of that brilliance coming out from Cog. It's why we kind of gave the Rascal Jesters that mad genius spotlight. Ooh,
Hollow takes 2/3 to 3/4 of his health bar as Utapon lands the entire combo, and the Acathian Rain does a lot of damage. Get the impression that out in the void, they've got an acid rain problem by the looks of it. Yikes.
I feel that way, and this was with both AD carries not actually having their mythic item. Obviously, Gale Force now coming out for Hollow after taking a huge chunk and then realizing, oh yeah, I should probably go back and just get my mythic item. That's probably a good idea. Utapon able, though, however, to push out this lane and get another lane advantage, and how it's probably going to go, I think Hollow's only going to catch half of this as another gank coming topside. However, this time in Ebby's favor.
All right, Steel is here. They're looking to get that swell seed. It does land, but Mujin being around means they don't feel safe to go for the dive. currently, V3 at this 13-minute mark, up about 1,500 gold, just about, something like that. Checking in on those items, as you mentioned, the Eclipse has been finished for Jace. There is the Gale Force in for Xayah. I suspect Kai'Sa will be at a similar space when she backs relatively shortly as well, or at least a mythic item. We'll keep our eyes on that. So you can see where the points of pressure are. Eclipse in this dueling matchup, definitely doing a lot of work versus Gnar, who is struggling to leverage the advantage DFM would have liked. And sure, he's not fallen massively far behind in CS, but first tower has fallen. Jace has 2 kills. Jace has all the turret plates. That's a bit of a scary space for another. Ebby was hoping would be relatively lane dominant.
You would expect it to be lane dominant. However, there was always that off chance that potentially this Jace was gonna go somewhere else. While Ace, we were saying Ace could play, and I low key, I'm actually saying, maybe we just see Cog on Jace duty for V3 at the moment. I'm still a little bit hesitant to see that Jace from Ace again, but we'll have to wait and see how this season plays out. It's been working out so well. They need to start pushing more of an advantage. They need to keep putting more emphasis into Cog, because Cog's got a lot of their gold at the moment, that this advantage that V3 have, this 1k gold lead, which is negligible at most, is on him. So they need to keep using his advantage that he's got. If they don't, it will be all for nothing.
Yeah, of course, we're going to see second Herald spawn. DFM are moving over in force. They want to get a hold of this one themselves. Ebby is kind of getting close to that Mega Gnar point as well, so V3 do have to be a little bit aware of this, but that does mean that Cog on the other side of the map says, fine, you take that Herald, but I'll take a tower in trade, and you're only ever going to get the 1 tower with that Rift Herald realistically anyway, so that's a fair trade in my mind, and they're going to step forward onto Ace, who was under the tower. Teleport now coming through. They're going to see whether they can get anything more. DFM do get hit by that Nidalee Spear. It's Ebby that takes a massive chunk from the poke from Jace as well. Utapon desperately low, goes down to Hollow, who has roamed up, and DFM go down with 1 member with a great roam up from the bot lane. They get the Herald, they go for the dive, but the teleport in response is good to force them on a bit of a retreat, and Utapon dies for his first death of the LJL in 2021. Oh, shockwave.
Oh my.
Okay, well, that's probably just a clear wave, and they feel like they can't step up to siege at least, but Ocean Drake coming up in 20 seconds means they'll probably just retreat to the river and avoid looking at that tower. I wondered whether we were seeing a little bit more, but
Me too.
Course, it was, it's just there to clear the wave and to dissuade that tower push. We'll get a look at this replay instead, though, as looked okay for DFM early on.
It did. They actually were able to get that Rift Herald, rotate around it. It looked like it was going to be great. Ebby earns a beautiful knock-up. However, the moment Dominus is popped, they suddenly realize, we've only got Kazu nearby. We've only got Ebby nearby. Ebby's actually not very fed. They can't do much more on this. Beautiful amount of damage just coming out of Jace here. And now with Feather's Life, Hollow was able to get in. Gale Force back out. Never had to worry about it for the rest of his life. Reiner came in. Potentially, in a way, it would have been interesting if Hollow had decided to hang around. He has got heal. Reiner being right next to him, there was a chance that potentially they didn't even need to use the Gale Force to reposition and actually maybe later try and do something else. Maybe try and get an extra kill. Partially bait himself as live bait, but that's always risky, especially against an Orianna that does have a shockwave. They're starting up this dragon, and it looks like it's going to be pretty uncontested unless Steel can do some miracle, which we have seen before.
Yeah, no, they're just going to give it over. So it's a dragon apiece. It's about 2,500 gold now, the lead for V3. Arya in this bot side trying to keep this tower alive, but it's not going to stand up for very long. Cog gets that one, and this Jace is getting more and more scary. 4th mythic item in for V3 being that Gore Drinker for Renekton. And you can see it is Night Harvester on Lilia. It's not like the Moonstaff combo we're sometimes seeing. I suppose the other big one to call out here is, of course, it's Kraken Slayer out from Utapon, not the Gale Force, interestingly.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out while we were in some of these team fights which way that we were going to see Utapon go. There's a few options for Kai'Sa. I mean, Kai'Sa is just really tuned at the moment, so you can actually play her with the 2 to 3 different items. I can't remember what I was watching, but they were basically saying there is a realistic world where in different comps you could actually build all of the mythic AD items on Kai'Sa. I raised my eyebrow very high on that because I was like, I don't really think lethality Kai'Sa is very good, but I think they were going a bit facetious with what they were saying. They didn't quite mean it literally. But Kraken Slayer has
We have seen the occasional Dirk builds around Kai'Sa, interesting recently, partly because I think it gets you towards the Q upgrades relatively quickly. So I
It
agree,
does,
full
yeah.
lethality isn't really the thing, but you can see there's a Dirk in inventory right now and that kind of deal. So, there's definitely like elements of it, right? And that's always interesting to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, the collector has 12 lethality just built
Sure.
into it. It's funny to say where I'm like, I raised my eyebrows and I'm like, but it's because I don't want her to go full lethality.
Speaking of an eyebrow raise, Gore Drinker for now wasn't what I was expecting.
Ooh, I'm guessing that's partly because he can be off tank. Oh
Right.
god, Rhino though.
No, Utapon does go down as
Let's
Hollow finds a fabulous kill in the 2v2, but they engage back as Arya gets one, and DFM are now on the board. They're going to try and look for more. The boomerang lands onto Muujin, and that slow forces the flash away. They'll summon the Herald as well, and V3's over-aggression in mid gets them punished.
I love how they played it. Honestly, I think that was sick. Just watching the mechanics come out, and you could tell that Muujin is actually very comfortable on this. Rhino was immediately like, nope, I will die for my carry. He's already got 2 kills. I'm going to prevent this. And then they didn't realize that 4 members of DFM were there. That's the only problem with their whole play.
There you go, and it gets them in trouble. All right, let's have a look at this again, and you can see Utapon just gets jumped on by Gale Force and Rhino, right?
Yeah, they just immediately get jumped. Feathers Fly comes back out, grabs the lantern. However, Lilia already lilting Lullaby, doesn't matter afterwards. And the other thing is, a lot of the members of DFM had their vision in that topside brush. We saw that they've got this pink ward. They've got vision all around. They knew that none of the members of E3 were there to actually contest and actually back up the rest of their team. They felt rather comfortable and they could just push in and hilariously actually get 2 kills for their time. It's a worthwhile trade for them.
And DFM at some point as well have managed to pick up that mid lane tier 1, so they have got that on the board, and they've managed to keep their own up, which is a bit of a frustration right now for V3. All the same, you can see Nidalee and Jace occasionally are popping in mid and throwing a shock blast or a javelin toss at Utapon, who is kind of having to play dodge the skill shot. It's not always been working out as well as he would like. A lot of pressure. That is one of the risks of playing Kai'Sa when you're a little shorter ranged, as we mentioned. Right now, though, seems like something of a more stable game state. V3 are going to try and gather up and shove down on this mid lane tier 1, though.
Yeah, they've got a minor gold lead at the moment still. They've had this gold lead for predominantly most of this game ever since they got a few kills onto Cog. Cog has been putting out damage. It's just Meganar's coming up, and let's see what DFM want to do with it.
Absolutely, and Arya's around, has got Shockwave, is blocking off that entrance a little with the ball before it recalls. Shove out of the mid lane. They're going to look to take command over this river. Dragon coming up in 30 seconds. It feels like pretty much all the summoners are available, apart from now is Utapon going in onto Muujin with the killer instinct there is. At least the Dark Patch to keep people safe. Flay away onto Kazu, and Muujin survives. But the Nidalee at very low HP is going to have to wait on a few primal surges before she's fit to enter the river.
Yeah, Muujin needs to back immediately because there is a chance, because it takes about 25 seconds to recall and then get back to the middle of your lane if you're going to mid lane. It'll take him about 30 seconds to get there. He didn't immediately recall, so probably not interested in fighting this. He has been able to heal himself up full. I mean, with his item.
Wait. They're going to go on to
right,
Ebby here a little bit,
ooh.
but he is just going to get out and he's got Meganar, but V3 just refusing to take their foot off the gas. They're continuing to hop in and look for these little trades in dangerous positions, trying to give Cog this defense up on this tower. The knock away with the hammer blow keeps the Meganar from coming out, but now DFM in the mid lane looking to siege. It's a 4v3. Ace gets hit by the swell. See teleport now coming in behind. Here comes Muujin as well. Ebby's not going to be able to join with his own teleport, and suddenly from a 3v4 it goes to a 5v4, and DFM are looking to retreat. Command Dissonance gives them the speed they need, and they will instead back away to the river as this Cloud Drake is spawned.
Yeah, they haven't brute forced their way in, which is what I was expecting them to do with that numbers advantage. They knew that Ebby was going to still be stuck, but it looks like they want to be more careful, more considerate, and actually think about their actions and go, okay, let's just clear the vision out, get this dragon safely, and then we'll figure our way
Hollow,
out.
and onto Cog, who gets shut down. It'll be Drake for Jace, who does fall down, cannot get a hold of the lantern from Thresh before he falls. And DFM now at 22 minutes are thinking about wandering over to the Baron with the killer Jace off the field.
Huge opportunity there for DFM. Now that the Jace went down, they also got a shutdown of 150 gold. That's going to be shared out between them, all of them. And also, this Jace was a predominant force of their damage. I said that Cog needed to actually always be around their team. They need to be the damage for their team because he's funneled it. He's not sharing out the advantage that Mujin did get from him this early game, and they're going for it.
There goes Ebby, big Mega Gnar in. Kazu is on to Hollow as well. Ace flashes out, but it's a 1-for-1 right now. Ebby falls down again, but the Thresh is dead, and Hollow has got nowhere to run. He's healing as much as he can, but Udapon gets out, and Mujin has to flash into the Raptor Pit to stay alive. It'll be a 2-for-1 trade in favor of DFM, and they get out, but no Baron is taken.
Really unfortunate there for the side of V3. They tried to come in and contest this Baron because they knew if DFM get Baron, there's a 100% chance they come into this game and actually cause far more damage. Remember, at the moment, V3 only have 2 turrets on either side of the lane. DetonatioN FocusMe was able to force push that mid lane one down, partly due to the fact that obviously Ace came up to the top lane to actually assist to get Cog a bit further ahead. This has been a bit now in vain for the side of V3 because DFM have been able to push few. This is a beautiful base, and Kazu, as you identified coming into this replay, was huge. He just went immediately onto Hollow, prevented a huge amount of the damage that was going to come through, and while they did actually end up fooling Ebby, it was all for nothing in the end because they could just collapse onto Hollow and then go, okay, great, we got 2 kills already. Now we can force push mid, we can get more advantage and just keep playing around the map, clear up all the jungle camps, and get control of the map again. Only a 1k gold lead. What is that at this point now?
Absolutely, and we kind of said that, look, V3 have managed to pick up the early advantage. They've got this Jace very far ahead. If they can land poke with Cog and Mujin, they can siege and be nightmares in the split push. The problem is that come around these 5v5s, the engage options and the AoE damage from DFM is pretty difficult to deal with, and it definitely proved to be so there. DFM pick up their second tower of the game, and suddenly gold, as you mentioned, only about 1,000 apart, and that means very little here at the 25-minute mark.
Yeah, it's gonna not mean for a lot. And while Udapon has had a rather uncharacteristic amount of deaths for him in this game, his positioning hasn't been beautiful. It's good enough for what they need it to be. He's still outputting a decent amount of damage, and his Q scaling has a 150 bonus AD scaling, so it's going to be interesting because they can get rid of this real quick.
DFM do secure the Baron. It's gone down. V3 can't get there in time, but they're going to look for the fight now. Steel's in a bit as well. The shockwave only lands onto Ace, but he does die. Steel flashes out. He's alive. Arya has got a spear on top of him, but it's very, very low. The lilting lullaby is fabulous, and Hollow is dead again. Steel picks up another. He gets the Baron, and they'll get out as well. DFM take 2, take Baron, and are feeling very happy with their last few runs of play.
Oh, absolutely. This Baron is going to be a huge benefit for DFM. This game has been all V3 at the moment. They've been controlling a huge amount of the tempo. However, DetonatioN FocusMe are looking to take that full control. With this Baron, they have that control. Let's see how big of a Baron buff they're going to actually, well, a Baron play they're actually going to get off this. I'm so used to watching it on LEC and stuff, the Red Bull Baron play and all this other stuff. We need that in the LJL, Sam. We do need it in the LJL. They get this Baron, and look at this. There's only 4 members of V3 coming in. Where Jace is, he's in mid lane at the moment. He's nowhere near the rest of his team. However, when he does finally come into this lane, look at the amount of damage. 1, 2, 3. Cog come in. Huge amount of damage coming over onto the bars of DFM, but they're all so low, but they're all still alive. And it doesn't matter if you're alive with 1 HP, you're still alive at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and it's a frustration. DFM now have Baron, now have their own chance to pick up all this standing gold. You can see the AI bot here flipped right back over to DFM. Blitzcrank San favoring DFM. You can see early on was DFM favored until suddenly some of those advantages started ticking up in favor of V3. Back over to DFM now. They are in command. They have managed to pull themselves up to a 2,000 gold lead. They have got Baron for another minute and 20-odd seconds, and they're going to look to push as much of an advantage as they can. But Ebby might be about to be jumped on. Mega Gnar runs out, but not before he gets at least 1 ult out. Can he even find a way to escape, though? He's going to get very damn close. It's not quite enough. And Cog and Reiner managed to secure the kill onto Ebby in the top side. Can DFM get anything on the other side of the map is the question. Hollow, being left alone under this tier 2, could be in a spot of bother.
Well, definitely pushing. Kazu's coming from really interesting angles. I will have to identify and praise Kazu on that. He's just going all over the map and trying to find the most kind of not uncharacteristic.
Unexpected?
yeah, unique opportunities and angles, which it's, let's be real, that's partly going to be a coach thing. That's going to be that coach buff that he has. He can just come in and go, well, imagine if you looked at the map a bit differently. He's just running straight up through, leading the charge onto these members of V3. Muchin and
Flash
Hollow.
in. They are on to Hollow, but Kazu is very deep without a lot of support right now. There is the Void Seeker, which kind of means that the coach buff must be a little deep there. Ebby is teleported in, but DFM have lost a member already, and Steel goes very low and goes golden, I think, is sure to fall and shut down onto the Lilia that goes the way of Cog, no less. Looking a little bit scary, and that's a couple awkward plays for DFM, who has started with a very strong Baron and now end up with slightly less gold than they started with from it. And V3 will even get to shove in and take this mid-tier 1 that's been frustrating them for so long in this game. And gold, once again, Lexi, is back to near even.
Wow, I was just praising Kazu and then cast a curse. This is a blast from the
that was a fat hint that comes out the moment you mentioned it. He goes so deep, and there's just no follow-up.
I'm like, oh, he's doing some really good stuff in a lot of these team fights. But yeah, as you said, while casting this, he's in the middle of nowhere. Ace is also trying to fight Steel and prevent him from coming in, and it doesn't matter. The rest of this, I'm just, it's a bit of an int. He just runs into the middle of nothing. What's more interesting to talk about, honestly, is that this is Chem Tank, Alistair. Basically the new Righteous Glory coming out from production with that hot tip and hot fire. So thank you, production, for that. I appreciate that.
I thought that's Shirelia's Reverie.
It looks like Shirelia's, yeah.
I think that's Shirelia's.
I trust.
Not Chem Tank. I'll get production
trusting
double check.
production here.
Chem Tank Alistair has been a thing. I get the impression this is the Shirelia's option. We'll double check.
Production saw movement speed and just assumed. That makes sense.
There we go. But Hollow has been taken by Lilting Lullaby. He's going to go up. There is the Dark Passage that comes out as well, but he stays alive. But that will be Teleport. That will be Featherstorm down. Ebby split pushing away on the top side. Yes, he's 0-4-1, but he's still an irritating person flying around in this side lane. And it doesn't matter how low you are, how many times you've died. You can still do some things like Mega Gnar in the air.
Yes.
That wasn't particularly special, but Cog still going to get dived on. His Utapon uses Killer Instinct. That's not a lot gained, but Cog probably has to be forced away from this tier 2. His Utapon, though, takes a big chunk from the empowered Shock Blast. Steel continuing to throw out these Swirl Seeds, continuing to be as irritating as possible. DFM burn a couple ults, don't really get a lot for their time, and will pull back away.
Cog must be feeling good. He's like, yeah, I just got Naro and Kaisero, and I'm just chilling on my own. And I had a Thresh. I had a Thresh, but he's just dodging ultimates left, right, and center. Dodging the air or ulting the air, I feel like, is the new meta for Nars. And let's be real, we see it a lot. Well, we see it very often in a lot of different regions. With the rise of Gnar players, we've been seeing some interesting plays from them all.
We definitely have. And this is one of those tank I must survive on Gnar builds. He's got Sterak's, he's got a Spectre's Cowl inventory as well. It's like, please let me survive long enough to be irritating in a team fight. And you can't blame him. He's definitely not had the easiest early game, and the mid game's been a little bit much of a muchness on that front. But on the other side, Arya at 3 items on this Orianna, and what a 3-item combo it is. That is Seraph's Embrace even at this point. That is Luden's Echo. That is Death Cap. They are going to sting if they hit a Shockwave. Similarly, Lilia at 3, 1, and 2. 2.5 items complete there. Definitely pretty scary. 3 items on this Kai'Sa. Could do a lot of work for DFM. But my eyes, well, do have to be on this Jace that is monstrously strong. Onto this Xayah at 3 items as well. Also a force to be reckoned with.
One thing of note is Arya, the player that we hyped up so much coming into this, the player that we are expecting big things, the player that is playing a champion for the first time competitively in their history, in just professional play, is playing this Orianna. He's had a rather quiet game. He's just been scaling up, as you already identified, and now he's hit that 3-item power spike. Arya is going to start really hurting. He's still split pushing. He's doing Arya things. Like,
he's got teleport. He's down there because he's got the teleport, and V3 want to burn it. But you're absolutely right. You've got to keep your eyes. They're going to burn Shirelias themselves at V3, but Kazu just waits a little while and burns his own. That will mean tier 2 secured by Arya, who gets to roam into this red side jungle and take even more farm. Orianna's favorite thing in the world.
More farm.
Lilting Lullaby.
Ooh.
We're going to have to see whether Cog's going to get caught. But he's got a
Abby's almost there.
QSS. So it's down. But in comes Utapon using that killer instinct. Ace pops Dominus, but has to flash. He's in a spot of bother now as well, looking to try and get out. But the Crocodile is looking more and more like a pair of very expensive boots. But that's a decent amount of healing with Cull the weak. It's not going to matter, though. And DFM managed to get their way out. And will try and save alive.
Yeah.
They have got the Renekton down. They've got the front line down. It's a big shock blast onto Utapon, and this is the danger. V3 could do so much damage from range. They're going to get in, but Kazu is low. Arya's over the back. He's got Shockwave, but DFM don't have the health bars to stick around on this Baron. Good work from Muujin and Cog to put enough damage down to make the Baron a bad idea for DFM. But Cloud Drake's alive, and I worry that DFM might have to reset and give this one up because they lost so much in the way of health in that fight.
Yeah, what's important to note is Arya didn't actually end up using TP. He was able to just walk up from that bot lane after getting that tier 2 turret on that bot side. Now, he still has the shockwave. They are getting this dragon. So DFM, even if they're not getting the Baron, they're still pressuring and pulling V3 around the map.
Here we go.
However, yeah.
Right, Ebby has got Mega Gnar, but he's got to wait for the rest of his team to arrive. He's got about 20 seconds, well, not even that, 15 odd seconds left. That's a big lilting lullaby, though. It's going to be a massive Mega Gnar, surely, but the golden Muujin keep things down, and he is dead. Mega Gnar cannot come through because there was too much stasis, too much CC, and Ebby falls down, despite what looked like the golden opportunity. Baron is stopped, though, and that will mean that V3 don't get to pull their own trigger on that big purple worm.
Exactly, and they can just keep doing this kind of thing. They are pulling, the V3 and DFM are actually playing a very interesting game. Each of the teams are pulling one another. It makes me feel rather good right now, I'll be honest, Initialize, about our predictions, our joint predictions and power rankings around this that we talked about over on our podcast, if I must plug it once again.
I know.
We kind of said that we thought V3 have the potential to be a number 2 team. And so far, with this game that we're seeing out from them, they look competitive against DFM, who were built to be the super team of the LJL.
They absolutely are. And it's not like DFM are out of this game. They've got a 2,000 gold lead. Oh, they've got the right tools to make a good team fight. But I am very impressed with the likes of Cog, who has done a very good job on this chase. We've just got to see whether it's enough. They haven't got all the towers. Still a few tier 2 standing, and that's not the best look if you're playing with that Jason, that split push role. Especially when he's gone for things like the Mana Moon, looking to have as much damage as possible here. It's that full lethality Jace. It's a hook onto Steel, who takes some damage. But of course, at this point, Ari is around with a 4th item complete. And those shields from Command Protect are doing a fair amount of work themselves right now.
Absolutely. Ebby is now pushing in the spot side turret. He does have the teleport because Arya's already used his, so now that's why Ebby and Arya have switched on their split pushing duties one another. Arya has also hit 18. He is just further along everybody, even though Cog has had everything, and now they want this Baron again.
All right, Baron is being started, but DFM around nowhere near Mega Gnar as Ebby. It timed out relatively recently, down to just over 4,000 HP of the engage from Ace. Kazu going in, has to flash out, taken very low. Will try and get something, but falls down, but the shockwave is there. You don't need to hit anything when Arya can do it for you. That's a few dead back and forth. Cog gets 2, but now he is very low, as is Hollow. He gets 1. DFM and Ebby gets 1 with the boulder toss. Steel tries to get some of the blooming blows, but Hollow is alive. Reiner is alive, and it is a bloodbath indeed. Ebby, with their health bar lead, is going to try and get as much out of this as he can. The crunch doesn't land, the wallop doesn't land, and Hollow is going to get flashed on. Ebby gets that one, he's going to run down the rest, and suddenly, Gnar goes from 0-5-2 to 3-5-3 in one damn team fight. Everybody's dead by the mini Gnar, and that feels like a complete antithesis of this game.
Really does. It's just to sum up everything. It's like, well, all right, we put Ebby out of nowhere, but the problem is the game got to 36 minutes in. He's now level 18. The lead that Cog once had upon him is all for naught at this point. And now it's just coming down. Ebby identified really early on into this when they were coming in. He did a very early teleportation so we could come in. Kazu goes into the middle of everybody again, maybe a little bit too early, but the shockwave that comes out here is so huge. It chunks down many members of V3. However, V3 actually find an objective. Cog zones Ebby for this, and this is how Hollow and Reiner are able to find an advantage, even though there were even numbers at points of that. Problem is, Cog wasn't strong enough to actually kill Ebby, because Ebby had actually come into this game at this point. Hollow and Reiner, well, we saw how that went, and there wasn't much more to do.
Round
Now DFM want
2.
Dragon.
Fight. They do get Baron, and V3 just aren't in time, but in goes Kazu onto Cog, who's got no way out. The flash was burned last time. He gets crunched down by Udapon. And that will mean that Cloud Drake will be on the Rift in just under a minute. DFM have Baron. They've got a man advantage. And what can they get this time? And can V3 find the pick back out of this game?
Honestly, to answer that question that you sort of game out, I know it was rhetorical, but actually, that first Baron that we saw go down from DFM was probably the nail that they started. The second one is the coffin that they put it into.
They've still got 30 seconds on Cog, and they're just shoving their way in. It's nearly 40 minutes in Mass 1. DFM looking to try and end it here with the man advantage. Shurelius is popped. Aria off to one side, looking to get something that is a route onto Ebby, but he's still tanky. He's got a lot of Mega Gnar left, and V3 needs to be very afraid. Command attack, command dissonance does its damage to the crocodile. DFM won't continue to push. They can't get as much down as they wanted to. Nexus Tower is down low, don't get me wrong, but they'll back away and look for Cloud Soul instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that this isn't worth V3 even fighting for. 2 of their members don't get anything out of Cloud Soul, and while the other 3 members might be rather happy with it, they're not champions which have ridiculously long cooldowns on their ultimates, especially. Whoa, that damage from Cog is unreal sometimes.
He has been doing a lot of work on the Jace. It's just a question about whether it's enough now. Down the Baron, Ace is going to try and come and interrupt some recalls, but won't spot people in the bush. So DFM will get back without any interruptions. We'll look to get as much in as they can. Utapon now at max items. Aria with the stopwatch in inventory on the other side. Look as they go in. Reiner taken very low. There's Shurelius. There's the teleport in. Aria finds the shockwave onto Hollow. He's so damn low. Command attack won't quite land. There's the QSS, but I don't think it's going to be enough because Utapon makes it rain and makes it pour in a Kathia. That'll be a double for the AD carry of DFM. And with Ace, with Hollow down, DFM have found the pick, have found the teleport, and will find the win in their first game of the LJL in 2021.
Mujin with the surrender, Kazu with a sad Bumblebee. It makes total sense, and that's it. She's gonna write, mate.
It absolutely is. DFM finally close it out. It was a tempestuous game, Mass 1. We saw an early game focus massively on the top side from V3. We saw some good mid-game team fights for DFM, but V3 with some of those massive poke advantages doing some work as well, and it's closed out, but my days, was it a close one.
Was indeed a close one. Roller coaster, rather, of love and emotions for all of us involved. I'm so happy to be back in the LJL, Initialize.
Tell me about it. But talk a little bit more about how this game went down. We're going to go to a very swift break to gather our thoughts, and we'll be back with an analyst desk in just a minute or so. See you then.
Welcome back. We are here on the post-game breakdown analyst desk meeting of friends trio. When shall we three meet again? It's right now, and it is after DFM have taken the win away from V3 Esports in a back and forth, but one which went in their favor. Of course, it all starts at that pick and ban phase, or even before that with a preparation and saying, well, okay, what do we want to play? What are we angling towards? And it seemed like V3 wanted Renekton mid, and they wanted that Jace and Nidalee on the top side. Of course, DFM went a bit more towards that heavy team fight. They had the real scaling from Aria's Orianna first time they brought that out on stage, but on the top side, they picked that Gnar, and V3 really pounced on that. Guys, what did you think coming out of that draft?
Right. Go for it, Lexi.
Okay.
This is why I have to point it to one of you.
So I actually really liked the first half of V3's draft. I actually think it was a really solid lineup. They indexed early on into the Jace, the Nidalee, which they B-side one into the Jace Xayah. I actually really like this idea. There's a core idea around what this team wants to do. It's a poke comp with disengage built into it. Jace can run away fast. Nidalee can jump away. Xayah has her feathers. While she can't now jump over a wall, which I learnt from Nymera's casting yesterday.
Yeah, that would be very broken, I'm telling you.
Rightly so. It's just a point of engage. The Renekton really, I get the idea, but I don't like it. And I know what they really probably wanted, but yeah, V3's draft was a little bit weird with this Renekton, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so initialize. I guess if we're talking about this Renekton in the mid lane, we knew that Ace had played it in the past, back in 2019, when stuff like Pantheon mid was coming into meta. FPX were playing loads of Renekton mid. This Renekton obviously didn't crush lane. It allowed them to do some stuff in team fights. Do you think it was important, though, to allow them to get that Jace up into the top side for then V3 to play around that area of the map and punish Ebby?
I think that was probably the play, wasn't it? That V3 were basically saying, look, this is about, okay, Ace can play Renekton mid, that will do, but this is important because actually, Gnar into Renekton, Gnar just gets to, like, auto Renekton. If he keeps the distance, right, Renekton really only has the option to flash and stun him. That's kind of what you've got. And that's great with Nidalee, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to get you advantages, and it's not really going to shut the Gnar down that easily necessarily unless you're willing to burn a lot of summoners. Jace kind of trades really hard into Mini Gnar. Like, he just wins the damage trades unless Mega Gnar comes in and things get a bit scary.
Or if you have Hail of Blades, apparently.
Or if you have Hail of Blades, apparently. Exactly. And so it kind of put Ace in a bit of a difficult position, and they could never really capitalize on the Renekton Nidalee combo in mid. Instead, V3 went really hard to getting that Jace ahead, which I can understand because Cog actually had a very damn impressive game.
Did. And and I think we'll come back to Cog and again some of the debut members on these different rosters later into this little segment. I guess the problem with having so much pressure on topside though is that you don't get to be everywhere else on the map, and that meant that DFM got massive leads in mid and bot lane. I think it was about 25 CS difference in that mid lane, about 10-15 in that bot lane come the 10-minute mark, and that allowed DFM to really have a good foothold coming into the later game. What did you make of how DFM transitioned away from this early game into the mid game when we started seeing more of those Baron plays?
This was just DFM textbook example. Kazu opened his textbook and went, "Oh, I'm playing now. Okay, well, I'll just follow step one. We win. We can lose early game, but we always find the way in mid game." And they found their way in mid game. That first, just they were willing to sacrifice Ebby. He was just a sacrificial lamb because how much time in that game did Arya just get to free farm? Too long. Too long. He got like 40 CS over the Renekton mid
Highest level in the game.
quickly. Yeah, exactly. First one to hit 18. Arya was able to go, okay, as well did Utapon and Kazu, where they were like, oh, well, we can just farm freely in this bot side and we scale well. Okay, and that was DFM's laning prowess. They understood that the game can go away from them in the early game. They'll find it in the mid game.
Yes, and Sam, speaking of that, of course, they managed to get some of those incremental advantages you can build up over the lane. And that, of course, leads to the real story of this game, which was around the Barons. What did you take of V3's approach to it? Do you think that they were forced to play the way they were, or did they just make a mistake in their strategies?
So I think it's probably a matter of two things. They got the Jace exceptionally far ahead. The problem is they couldn't balloon their gold lead past about 2,000 or so. DFM did a very good job about picking up advantages, preventing the Jays from going so far ahead that that gold lead from towers and stuff didn't get somewhere like 5k, which would have been nearly untenable, right? And that meant that with that gold lead being a little bit more even, and then DFM kind of hitting enough of their items to come and challenge around some of these Barons, you're then playing into Shockwave, into Alistair, into Gnar, into Lilting Lullaby. That's not an easy place to be when your only front line is Renekton with Dominus. And so part of it was
Yeah.
the issues with where they were in the game, not getting quite far enough ahead. And then the other issue, of course, is they're playing into a comp that is just better around these objectives than they are. I'll give them credit for having people like Kog'Kog deleting Utapon in a number of fights, for throwing out all this massive amount of AoE poke that held them on in fights that perhaps they shouldn't have been in. So credit for V3 for problem solving, but it wasn't an easy situation to be in.
Not easy at all, and well, what a game to step into these lineups for Kog'Kog, Hollow, Muujin, and of course Arya on DFM. Lexi, I guess we'll go over this and we'll finish out this. In terms of a debut performance, did anyone stand out to you? Anyone suffer? Or what did you get in terms of your benchmarking for these debuts on these rosters?
To be honest, while it's not the best performance in the world, I'm actually very happy with everybody. Kog'Kog on this team very much reminded me of Spring Kog'Kog from Rascal Jesters, so I'm hopeful to see more of that kind of experience out of him. We know he's a tenured player in the LJL, and now he seems to be able to actually flex a little bit more and actually go, oh, I can do things and not have to worry about 4 other members of my team because I can trust in my team now. No offense to his past members, it was just summer was very
Summer Rascal Jester
Yes.
had its issues.
Muujin definitely showed that he understands jungle pathing in competitive play, and that will only grow furthermore in the LJL. But this is also maybe one of the best junglers that's come into V3 in recent years, which is funny to say because of the people that have come before him. And Hollow played really well. I was actually very impressed with him. Arya, though, let's be real, was the standout performance here from a new player on a new team. I'm exaggerating a bit, but let's be real, Arya was pretty MVP.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to be said about them being stable in the early game and then, having a bit of a quiet game, being forced out of a couple of fights. But the shockwaves always hit someone important,
Really
and
did.
particularly in that last phase of the game, it just took 80% of the health bar of Hollow. Before that, Xayah could ult away from a crafty flank, and craftiness did win DFM the day. We're going to cut it there, get ourselves to a break, because while we could talk about this all day, there are still 3 games left for us to cover, and we will be bringing them to you after this break.